Hey everyone, welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana Claure. And if you've been struggling with decision-making, feeling anxiety or hesitation, in this episode, I'm going to share with you my top strategies for knowing how to make courageous decisions that are going to propel your business and career forward. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana Claure. And in today's episode, I'm going to share with you a very special framework on how you can make better decisions and relieve yourself from the anxiety and hesitation that may be crippling your capability to grow your life and grow your business simply because you lack the direction that you need to make the best decisions possible. So let's talk about why deciding is so important. First of all, the root originating word of the word decision comes from the Latin decidere, which means to cut off other opportunities, to remove yourself. It's the opposite of incision. When you have an incision, you're cutting into something. But decision comes from cutting off other things and focusing on one specific path. If you've been struggling with decision making and you find yourself constantly hesitating, second guessing yourself, trying to figure out whether this is the right decision or not, chances are the reason for that hesitation is simply your lack of clarity around what do you actually want. When you're not clear on your path, on your goals and the things you need to get there, that's when indecision becomes very, very limiting because you're not sure whether this way could get you there or that way could get you there. And so it becomes a crippling moment where basically you end up in what's called analysis paralysis. If you've ever felt in this moment of just too much information, too many options, too many decisions to make, and therefore you don't make any decisions, well, that's exactly what's going on. Your brain is trying to process too many paths to take. It is not cutting off. It is trying to take 10 paths into your results, into the goals. Why is this important? Well, because if you are an entrepreneur, a creative musician that wants to be able to move into a next stage in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your health, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you will only be able to get to that next stage if you develop decision-making powers. Because everything you create will be at the end of making a decision that may sometimes lead you to the result directly, or sometimes it will lead you to a different result that will be different, that will give you a different perspective. It may fail, it may succeed, but no matter what, it will be something that will give you information and data to continue pushing through. If you are struggling with decision making and hesitating taking a step, whether that is learning something new, branching out into perhaps reinventing your brand, whether it's developing a new positioning in your market, being okay with other people's perspective or new judgment of what you're building, what you're creating, whether it's having conversations with people in your inner circle, developing better boundaries, whatever challenging step you may be looking into taking right now that is going to need to happen based on your decisions, chances are if you are hesitating, again, it's because you're not clear on the reasons why you would make that decision. You would take that leap of faith. You would make that bold move. So in order for you to develop better decision-making capabilities, it starts with this 3-step process. Number 1, clarity. You see, when you develop a clear understanding of what you want and why it matters, because oftentimes we can know what we want, but we don't know exactly why. So it's twofold, right? It's about knowing what you want. And then why is that important? When you can connect those two clear points in your direction, you're then going to be able to build an intuitive instinct that will help you feel the decision whether to do it or not to do it. Why? Because you're building it on a base of clarity. Now, when you don't have that clarity, that's when you start getting paralyzed because you're trying to come up with 10 different scenarios and you're not sure even why. So starting with that clarity, can you take steps to develop the clarity that you need, whether that means learning skills that you may not know, whether that means having conversations with people around you that could potentially give you better direction, whether that means talking to people who are doing what you want to do, learning from what they've done, whatever it is that you feel you need to develop more clarity. Maybe it's surrounding yourself by people who are very, very different than the people you have in your inner circle. Sometimes we're surrounded by people who keep us stuck at a certain level and who don't really help us see what's possible, right? Who may actually be naysayers and saying, no, like this is not possible. Who do you think you are? Like, why would you succeed? How do you know it's going to work, right? So whatever step you know you need to take right now to start developing a clear guideline in your life in a direction that you would say, yes, this is the path I want to go? You may not know exactly everything you're going to have to do to get there, but you are clear on the destination. That's what's going to be your first recipe for effective decision making. Clarity. Number 2, intuition. When you actually realize that when you're about to make a decision, if you are clear on the goal and the reason for that goal, your own subconscious feelings, emotions, deeper wisdom will help you tune in to whether or not that decision is good for you. Why? Because ultimately, when you're clear on why you want that thing to do, why you want to achieve that thing, what that's important, how important that is, then your own inner emotions will help you tune into whether that decision you're trying to make is actually in alignment or not. Which leads me into step number 3, not only channeling your clarity and your intuition, but ultimately then making sure that whatever decision you make is in alignment. If you think about music and you think about the phenomena, the physics of sound vibration, what happens when we play a key in the piano and the strings start vibrating, producing a certain vibrating frequency, like 440. When you start vibrating at a certain frequency, similar strings that have parallel vibrations at the fifth and the octave are going to start vibrating in tune with that first note that you created. That's called the law of resonance, right? These are what are called overtones, meaning you are going to activate vibrating frequencies that align with that note that you played. The exact same thing is going to happen with your life and your decisions. When you are clear on the first note, when you decide this is the frequency I want to tune into, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut off. Remember, I'm going to decide and not continue thinking about all these different possibilities. No, this is what I'm going to do. Then that clarity leads to the intuition that follows, helps you tune into the deeper reasons why you would take that step. And ultimately, then it builds alignment not only to your goals, but it actually creates alignment with external circumstances. What do I mean? If you've ever made a decision in a split second and you've said, okay, I'm going to do this, and all of a sudden things start falling in your plate. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I've certainly felt it many, many times. Until I haven't decided, I've been paralyzed with the options and the choices and the overload of information and seemingly conflicting ways of doing things. But at the moment I decided, I said, I'm doing this, I'm going on this path, all of a sudden coincidences, quote unquote, started falling in my plate. People would send me things or something would pop on my inbox. And all of a sudden I would say, oh, wow, this is a coincidence. As soon as I was thinking about this idea, this path that I wanted to take, this project I wanted to embark on, all of a sudden, I'm starting to see things kind of fall into my plate that are going to lead me towards that goal. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. That means that you start channeling that frequency of intention. You start connecting with your deeper intuition to take the steps. And then it aligns with not only your goals, but also circumstances, people, ideas that may come to you because you started from a path of clarity. So clarity, connecting with the reasons why also, intuition, leading to ultimate alignment, just like in music, can be a beautiful, harmonious sound, a beautiful, harmonious set of circumstances that can make your ability to decide so much easier and feel in the state of flow and not think that things are just coincidences, but they always come as a result of you developing that decision. You cut off other possibilities. Now, why is this important? Because here's the thing. Oftentimes when we're considering making a decision, what stops us is fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of unpredictability, not knowing what's going to happen at the other side of that decision. And I want you to think about it this way. If you make a decision, yes, you have a 50-50 chance that it goes the way you wanted it, or it may not. It may go a different direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be failure, but it's just a different path, right? I like to think as failure as information, data. Like if you fail at something, all you're gathering is new information on what to do better next time and then do it again. But here's the thing. If you put yourself in a place of paralysis and you stop making decisions because you're afraid, that is a decision in and of itself. Your indecision becomes a decision-making pattern that you start becoming habitual. It starts being part of how you go through life. Whether it's a small decision, what am I going to make for dinner today? Or whether it's a major decision, like who's going to be my next partner in my business, or who's going to be my next mentor, or what am I going to do? Like big decisions. Either way, your decision-making pattern in your brain starts being hesitant. Because if you don't develop this ability to say, I'm going to decide, and chances are I may succeed or I may not, but either way, I'm taking action, and action is information. And for the next decision that I make, I will make a better decision. So even if it doesn't go the way I wanted to, I'll be able to stand up, pick up, and keep going and make a better decision next time. The worst thing you can do, and this is something that I see so much in the work I do with musicians, is use past evidence of failure or past bad decisions and think that because you didn't get the results you wanted when you made a decision in the past, that if you repeat that decision, you're going to fail again. Let me share an example. I'm sure many of my listeners here have relationships. You may have a spouse, a significant other, a partner, someone in your life that you're sharing this journey with. Probably that person you're with was not your first partner. Chances are, if you're like most people, you had many prior relationships before you settled with the partner you currently have. Yes? Imagine if after your first relationship didn't work out, that first breakup, you would have said, I'm never having a relationship again, because my first relationship failed, so I'm just never going to have a relationship. That would be absurd, because you cannot define your future based on your past. You cannot let your past failures or deviations, or I hate using the word failure, but disappointments, let's say, setbacks, right? If you let those setbacks that have defined up until this moment who you are, if you let those setbacks inform your future decisions and you're hesitant to take the steps that you need because you're afraid you may find another setback or something may happen again in the way you didn't want it to in the past, and you start repeating your future based on what you did in the past, that becomes a crippling decision-making pattern. And I know this happens so much, and it's something that I've personally had to learn to just talk myself out of every single time I'm facing a decision that I feel that fear, like, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this, right? Now, I'll share with you a funny story. I don't like roller coasters. I am not a roller coaster person as an adult. As a kid, I loved roller coasters. But somehow, as I evolved, became an adult, roller coasters, not my thing. However, I have two kids, 5-year-old and a 10-year-old. Going through a park one day, I said, even though I don't like roller coasters, I'm going to give this one a try. I looked up the video on YouTube. I looked at the entire ride on YouTube so I could know what to expect. I knew there were some ups and downs. There were some dark spots, blah, blah, blah. The roller coaster went up and then it went backwards. So I was just, okay, mentally preparing myself. Can I handle this? And on video, it looked okay. I showed it to my kids. I said, we're going to try this roller coaster. I know I usually don't do it, but we're going to give it a try. Let's just give it a try. Let's see how it goes. I went into the roller coaster. My older kid loved it. My youngest did not like it. And neither did I. I did not like that roller coaster. Now I know I will not go into that roller coaster probably ever again. Right? But here's the thing. If I wouldn't have made myself, just challenge myself to say, can I take a step out of fear and do it anyway and just see what happens? Psychologically, I was feeling very afraid. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to give it a try and I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do it. I did not like it. As I said, I'm not going to do it again, but I have to develop that muscle that later can be applied in other areas of my life where I want to take a step. And it's just that instinct of saying, oh gosh, this feels scary, but I'm not going to know really what the outcome is until I do it. That modeling of taking steps, even though you are afraid, is not only going to inspire you and develop more confidence in your own ability to take action when you feel uncertain, but also will help people around you be able to learn from your example. If you're like so many parents, you may find yourself lecturing your kids sometimes, right? Telling them you should do this, you should do that. But if you've been following my content, and I love talking about this, like chances are anyone you're trying to lead, they're not going to follow what you say. They're going to follow what you do, right? And even though I hated that ride that day, my kids were so proud of me for having taken the leap of faith and having just gone on it with them. Probably is the last time I'm going to do it with them, but at least they got to see their mother just going at it, and just giving it a try. And that is priceless. I developed an awareness and a better sense of confidence for myself, and I modeled it for my kids. So it's a win-win, even though I did not like the experience. I'm making that very clear. So in your case, what are some examples that you can think of? I want this to be an educational episode for you to kind of start brainstorming. Can you think about moments in your life right now that you may be wanting to make a decision and you may be stuck in a pattern of decision making that is crippling? because you are used to always second guessing yourself. You're used to always saying, yes, but what if it doesn't go right? Or, you know what, I've tried this in the past, but it hasn't worked out. So I'm not going to do it again because chances are it may fail again, or I may feel disappointed, right? Just like you wouldn't do that with your relationships, chances are you shouldn't be doing it with your business either, or your life, anything you're trying to make a decision right now. This isn't about just saying move past your fears. This is about recognizing that the way you wire your brain, we actually have something called neuroplasticity. There is no stopping to how you shape your brain. Did you know that? If you study neuroscience, our brains are constantly shaping and changing its forms and pathways based on our actions, meaning we don't ever stop. So if you have up until this point created a neurological wiring of your brain that always stops yourself when you're going to make a decision and pauses yourself from what your intuition is guiding you and telling you to do, but you're just like, no, because I have to think about it. I have to wait. I have to ask ABC, XYZ what they think about it before I can have an opinion. Anything you've been pausing and stopping yourself because of that fear or because of past mistakes or past disappointments, this is your invitation to step into the new version of yourself that will be able to achieve results because you change your decision-making capability. You see, a lot of the work that I do with musicians is not just helping them build, grow, and scale their businesses or put their businesses on autopilot or stop trading time for money and build businesses based on their expertise. Those are all byproducts of what truly happens when you start changing the way you make decisions. What I really love doing when I work with musicians and when I create content like this, when I contribute to my community in any way, is first addressing the thought process, the decision-making process. What are the values, the behaviors, the traits that you need to develop in your own internal being in order to start making better decisions, in order to start getting different results, in order to ultimately achieve the life and business that you want? Those are only going to come at the other side of your ability to make decisions with confidence, with courage, even in the face of uncertainty, being able to lean into that and say, okay, I have no idea if this is going to work out, but I'm going to take this step and I'll find out along the way. And not letting past mistakes or disappointments stop you from making a new decision every single time. The faster you can make decisions, and that's another thing. I want to talk about that because a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to make an impulsive decision. I've made impulsive decisions before and it hasn't worked out for me. So I'm going to force myself to not decide and I'm going to think about it. Guess what happens? The longer you wait on making a decision, the less likely you are to actually make that decision, to take the step. Let me give you an example. Think about standing on the edge of a diving board, about to jump into the pool. Imagine yourself walking slowly to the edge of that diving board. Meanwhile, all the other people are passing by you and jumping in and jumping in and jumping in. The longer you stay on the edge of that diving board, looking down into the water, waiting and waiting and waiting, whether you jump or not jump, to jump or not to jump, are you more or less likely to actually take the leap? Chances are you're not, right? If you're like most people. Again, a word of caution, the more you stop yourself from deciding, the more you neglect this 3-part framework that I'm bringing you through, clarity, intuition, and alignment, the harder you're going to find your life just circumstances become, and you're going to wonder, why am I stuck? Why am I always behind? Why am I not growing? Why am I not building the life and business that I want? It starts with how you make decisions. So do me a favor, force yourself to make 2 important decisions right after you listen to this episode. It can be around your business. It can be around your life. It can be around relationships. Anything you've been pushing away, avoiding, start by asking yourself, why is this decision important? How is it going to take me to my next goal? Do I know why it's important? What is the goal that I'm trying to achieve? How do I feel about that? Because again, tuning into that emotion is very, very important. And ultimately, does it align to where I want to go? And if the answer is yes, go make that decision today, and you can thank me for it later. I hope this helps. Until next time, let's prosper together.